Hi, welcome to Theater Corner. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. As a lifelong theater enthusiast and a board member for one of the top theaters in the country, I've seen firsthand the positive effects that diversity and inclusion can have on the stage and the theater seats. This interview series was created as a way to share my passion for theater and promote diverse voices throughout the national theater scene. We sit down with some of the top professionals in the entertainment industry to discuss training, careers, advice for young actors, and how to make theater matter to more people.
I'm Kenneth. What's your name?
Casey.
I'm glad you chose karate, Casey. It's an excellent martial art and will likely change your life. Would you like to go first?
Maybe you should go first.
Okay.
Face! Pass!
Not in the day class.
Sorry, Sensei. Forgot where I was. It was an accident.
And our guest this episode is the incredibly talented Phillip Andre Botello. Welcome to Theater Corner, brother. So exciting to have you here. We've been chasing you down for a long time, but you've been out filming for quite a bit.
Yeah, back to back. I've been fortunate to be working, and hey, I just got to say that was an incredible introduction. Thank you. I feel good just being here. Can I take you with me? And you just, when I walk in a room, maybe
I'll be your hype man.
Yeah, hype man.
You get onto the city bus, there I am.
No, but I'm so glad that we're finally, doing this, and I know that I've been on your radar, you've been on my radar, so this is awesome.
Very nice. But it's our privilege, to have you for sure. And so it's great that, we're based in San Diego, but actually you're from San Diego.
I'm not born here. I was born in Los Angeles, but this San Diego has pretty much produced me. I spent a lot of my informative years here. A lot of my training started here at some really great places. So I'm a San Diego kid.
All right. I'm glad you mentioned training because your training has been sort of exact. You got the premier training track. Tell us about that because it actually started back in high school, perhaps?
Yes, it started back in high school. I attended what's called COSA, or the Coronado School of the Arts in Coronado. It's an arts program, and I was fortunate enough to get in. I have to thank my mom, who she's a teacher herself, and she champions teachers. She saw that I had a certain need, and I was yearning for something, and she gave me access to this place. And I don't want to quote other people, but Jay-Z, he always says, what's the difference between like him and Bill Gates? And it's access. If he had access to a computer when he was a kid, he might be doing something else. So I really appreciate my mom and my stepfather, who is in the military, because they saw that I had this need for something.
Right.
And instead of, like some parents, they might say, no, you got to stay in this school and do what you're supposed to. My mom said, it seems like you're kind of leaning in a certain way, so why don't I make something available for you to have it and see what happens? And I just ate it up. So I got into theater. Coronado School of the Arts put me on a stage, started doing heavy works like Shakespeare, Neil Simon, and it was a constant thing. I think school was like 7 to 2 regular hours, and then my arts program started. So it was like 7, 2, and I'd stay, get like maybe a 30-minute break, and then I'd have like my arts classes.
And that's when you came alive.
That's when I came alive, and it started becoming the focus. Where, I was an arrogant kid where I was like, I don't even want to do regular school. Just put me in the arts classes.
But somewhere in there, you made such a marked impression, obviously, on someone. Where you went to Julliard from there.
Yeah. So again, thanking my mom and putting me, giving me this place where I could learn these things. And I had some great teachers at Coronado School of the Arts, COSA they call it. I fell in love with a teacher there named Liz, and same thing. She saw that I was hungry and there was a little spark, and she just, started fanning that flame. And she said, hey, there's this program, and it's called the Julliard School of Drama. And you were mentioning some actors that you like, and they've come to this program. And she said, I think you have a really good shot. And I mean, as a young person, that is everything, hearing it from a teacher. And I really like and champion teachers because they really have the power to help, to hurt, or do nothing.
Certainly.
And, a teacher saw me and she said, not only gave me accountability, but she said, I believe in your talent. And she helped me to get into that program. And from there, I auditioned, and it was at the time you learn more about it, and it's like very low acceptance rate. I think at the time it was like a 1%.
Wow.
Now it's like 2 or 3%, but it's
Like two.
yeah. But it was tough, and it was one of those kind of places where I learned about it. But even if I mentioned it to someone, like they're saying, "What are you thinking about after Coronado?" I'd say, "Well, I'm thinking about Julliard." They're like, "Oof, don't even try." And they would say, "Hey, I don't know you, but." And they'd always preface it with like, they only take the cream of the crop, or they're only. So I was like, oh well, now I have to go.
Yeah, and you never know until you put it out there and try. That's the other important lesson. But you were there. You were accepted, and you're there training. But you're there training as a person of color. Tell me about that experience in that context.
That's a really great question. So that's a great question. So I know things have changed now, but being as a young kid, I thought that because I'm mixed, my father's from, he's Mexican, he's from Michoacan, and my mom's African American, and together they make me. But I thought that I would have more of a chance. And I learned at that time when I was applying from some my teachers who were also of color. They said, hey, actually, it's going to be harder. And they said, at that time, at Julliard, in the acting program, they only accept 20 people. So out of all these, they only accept 20. That's the freshman class.
Wow.
And most of those people at that time were Caucasian. And there was maybe one Hispanic or one African American. So my teacher was trying to let me know, like, it's going to be harder for you. She's like, when you get in that room, in the audition room on that day, you're going to be competing with everyone, but if there's anyone that kind of looks like you got to beat them out.
Interesting.
And I remember, and I know, isn't that so? It's such a bad thing, but I remember being in the audition room and seeing everybody, and I'm like, okay, these guys are my competition, but also if there's anybody that looks like me, and there were some people, and I'm like, all right, so, because they weren't going to accept both of us.
Right.
Unfortunately, most of the people in my audition process, I think there was like, on my day, in my block, there was like 100. There were some people of color, and I didn't see any of those people in the action program. Now, when I got in the program, there were other, which was good, but it wasn't enough. And I know that program has since changed because people like Anthony Mackie, who, when I went to the school, he showed me around, he really fought for like getting August Wilson and these plays, people of color to do Hispanic. So it's changed a lot, and the classrooms reflect that. So I think when coming in, I was just kind of like on the cusp of that when they were starting to get a little more hip, a little more cool. But that's a great question.
And what I'm hearing and understanding is that, brother, you were the competition. So you phrase it how you want to phrase it, and I'll let you know what's up.
But it's that whole process, and it's so interesting. That whole is a nerve-wracking process, and my teachers were trying to tell me at that time the audition and the callback you got on the same day was the most important thing, and if you could do that, then you had a really good shot. And the teachers were telling me like sometimes they would audition in a group, and at that time they would put who they wanted to see on like a white piece of paper with a tape, and people would take it down and the names would be there. And sometimes it would be no name. So I was in a group, and and it was 100 people, and my last name is Botello, so obviously alphabetically I went first.
Right.
But I was talking to some people in the room, and I had to wait around I was like with 100 people, and finally they put this list out, and it's this white piece of paper, and all the kids rush to it, and I just hear a gasp. And I was like, oh, I didn't get in. And I was like, I had this plan where I was just gonna walk past it, look, and move out. And then one of the girls goes, who's Phillip? Phillip. And she goes, wait, aren't you Phillip?
Wow.
And I looked at the board and it just had my name there.
Wow.
And I was like, Phil. No, I'm not Phillip. I don't know. I don't know who you're talking about. But I remember, like, congratulating myself in the bathroom. But it's,
That's amazing.
that's crazy. Like,
oh, really? Yeah. I mean, that's 1% acceptance. It's a
Yeah.
great shot of confidence right out of the gate. Kind of knowing that that's where you sit, and so that's starting your foundation of stage. And then you obviously transition to film, and you've done tons of film.
Yeah.
So where does the stage? I know maybe that's nostalgic for you now. You've done so much film, but what do you think it is? The difference between stage and film, and what's your preference?
Yeah.
What's the different experience like for you?
Me being immersed in theater and getting this theater foundation was everything. It's so demanding. When you're doing things like plays like August Wilson,
Oh, yeah.
and Shakespeare,
Right.
it takes everything. And their kind of model at that school is like, if you can do the classics, then you can do anything. If you can do these plays and playwrights that are, you can really like sink your teeth into, and you'll be able to do anything. And it does. It really stretches your powers as an actor, and you see what you can do. The difference between stage and film, the mechanics they're both are the same, because at the end of the day, you're trying to be truthful.
Right.
And it applies both. And the difference is you might have an audience and there's 100 seats and you might project.
Right.
And then the camera is just right in front of your face. I'm going to quote somebody else who says it perfectly. He says, doing theater is like doing surgery with a scalpel. You have to be so precise. But doing film is like doing surgery with a laser, because it's picking up your thoughts. And actually, I found that if you're doing Shakespeare on film, much more easier than doing it on stage.
Right.
Because it's always like a dialogue with the person, and
Well, there's the opportunity to cut and start all over. I mean, you're
100%.
on the spot
Yeah.
on stage. I mean, you got to be spot on.
You got to be spot on, and you're in the moment, on the day, and if you mess up, you mess up. So you get a good foundation about being prepared, showing up ready. So I think that's really helped me in my film work, because I don't need a lot of takes. Like I'm ready to go, and it's all from that training. Because, God forbid you're on stage with egg on your face. And
Oh,
you're just
yeah.
like- and which is happened, and you learn, and you're like, oh man, I messed
Absolutely. And also, I would have to say, less takes. I mean, I've directed some short films
That's right.
before, and I can appreciate someone coming in and, like, first of all, coming in off book and just nail it in the first time or second time, and bam, because you're burning sunlight.
100%, and that's what you learn in film. As the other actor, sometimes younger actors was like, "What advice can you give me about preparation?" And I always say, you can do as the actor whatever you want to prepare, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody on the crew, and 2, it doesn't eat up time. So if I'm waiting for you to prepare on the day, like right before a scene, I'm like, some people are okay with that, but it eats up time. So just do your work, and you learn all that from the theater preparation and that background. You got to show up prepared. You have to be off book. You have to know.
Right.
So it's helped me out, because a lot of people. That's why I get rehired. Is people like, he'll be ready.
Oh, exactly.
So
That's money.
I'm glad you appreciate that. That's important for a lot of young actors.
It certainly is. That's money. We'll talk about some of the films that you've done, and a lot of those films, you're the lead actor. And I was just curious, especially as the lead, how do you go about getting yourself out of the way so that your character can be there, if that makes sense?
Michael, that's such an awesome question. That's how I know you're directing and you're in that. That's great. So, okay. And I learned part of this at the Julliard School, and I didn't really get it until I was working professionally. I had a teacher there. She was a voice teacher. Her name was Kate. I'm just like name dropping everyone.
No, that's fine.
And she said this. She said, when the work is really good, it becomes a process of just getting out of the way and letting the work on you. Now, unfortunately, especially for actors, and when you're starting out of the gate, most of the work you get is bad. So you really have to work. And the thing I didn't really pick up from there, which you learn professionally, is like when you get a really terrible script or a bad TV show, it's hard.
Right.
Because you have to try to make it, because they're expecting you to be Hamlet.
Right.
And then you got to say these really cruddy lines. or it's a really underdeveloped character.
Right.
And sometimes you might not like, well, I don't. But to answer your question.
And perhaps I'm asking about, has more to do with like authenticity, getting the actor out of the way so that your character does come across as authentic.
It's always easier when the writing is great, and because you just have to get out of the way and you let the work on you. And I know it sounds maybe I don't want to say ethereal, but it really is. When it's really, like when you're doing a Shakespeare, you can just really get out of the way and just let the works affect you as the actor. So to be open. When the work is that heightened or it's a really strong piece, it becomes a process, to answer your question, is getting out of the way. So what that means is the actor's not imposing too much on the text. If I know it's really meaty, most of the work is done. If you wrote this brilliant piece, I'm taking my notes from you. So they would say in the theater, like, play is Bible, or this script is Bible, because everything is there on the page. And in the film world, that term is on the page. Everything's on the page. So if I say in a movie, I'm doing a movie and it's on the page, other film actors or people, they're like, oh, really? Because they know that I still have to do the work, but it's really heightened. So for instance, something that's on the page is Tarantino's scripts. Everything's on the page. It's all informed there. Some of these writers. I did this movie called The Art of Self-Defense. Everything was on the page. I really just had to get out of the way. And that becomes the process of like, I have my own ideas and I can still do that, but the writing is really specific and and so that's a whole lesson in itself, is just getting out of the way and not trying to appease my own ego, because we're telling a story and I'm here for the writer. But to answer your question, when I'm playing those leads and it's hard and the writing's not great, you have to do more work. And
exactly.
That's just what it is. And I had a good training foundation for that. And you try to just bridge it sometimes emotionally. This character is going through this, and what are my experiences? But it can be hard. And I've done a lot of movies that weren't great. I've done maybe a handful that are good, but a lot of scripts that were underdeveloped, and they weren't on the page. They were just archetypes.
Wow.
Where they go, hey, you're playing this kind of person, and but in those situations they say, what can you bring to it?
Right.
And that's your opportunity.
So we don't sacrifice any Theater Corner viewers. We're not going to mention those films that probably weren't that good. But you did mention the Art of Self-Defense, and so let's talk about that one, because that film is on Hulu, Apple TV, Amazon. So tell me about the character and kind of a little bit about the film itself.
Okay, so the film is directed by the very wonderfully talented Riley Stearns. It's his second feature film. His first feature film was Faults. This movie premiered at South by Southwest, which was great. It was in theaters everywhere. It's a dark comedy, and it explores toxic masculinity. It's great. I play this character, Kenneth, who is in the soup. He believes in this martial arts studio, what's going on, and he almost has blinders on. You see the hindrance it can do of, trying to be too masculine in this world. Jesse Eisenberg's great in it, starring him and Imogen Poots. It's a fantastic film, and it's one of those films where I really was proud of it. I could step back and look at it and go, oh, wow, this is something. And it also helped when I was in South by Southwest. It was like 1,500-seat packed theater, and it got like a standing ovation. And I was sitting next to the writers at like Variety, and I was watching the reactions, and it was something great to be a part of. So I'm really thankful that I was a part of that film. So
in this film, Art of Self-Defense, you mentioned that there's the martial arts part, but talking about authenticity, you had the skill coming into that project.
Yeah, I did. I grew up practicing martial arts, and I was doing it around the house. Bruce Lee was my guy.
All right.
My sister, no, she's here. I was, trying to get my sister, Monique, throw a punch so I can show you this. But yeah, and oddly enough, this is the first time that I got to showcase it in a film. And That's not why I was cast. I got cast off a self-tape, just acting.
Right.
And whilst I was on the day, you know how films are. You're always, behind schedule, or they just happened to ask one day, "Hey, do you actually know martial arts?" And they had the camera set up, and I was like, "Let me show you some stuff." And then they're like, "Great." Now there is a person in that movie. His name's Steve Tereda, who is a real martial artist. So you can see the difference. I grew up doing it, and I still practice in the gym, but Steve is like the real deal. So me compared to him, wow, it's night and day. But I could do some things.
You're a little modest. I saw the movie, and you basically like front kicked this guy in the gut. So
And Jesse was great, by the way.
Right.
He was down to do a lot of those scenes with me.
Right.
So yeah, but thank you.
And so you came across my radar actually because we have someone in common, Michael Goyette. We said a shout out to
Michael
to
Goyette.
Michael.
Yeah.
You started in a film called the 11th Order, and where you play a Marine, and this is a true story.
True story.
So I'm a Marine Corps veteran, so that particular film really grabbed me. Tell me about that.
So it's about these two actual Marines who sacrificed their life for their whole team. It's a wonderful cast. I was so thrilled, and because it felt authentic, and that's what I told him. When I auditioned and I sent my tape, and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you know anything about the Marines and being in the Army, but it feels real." And the director was, a Marine.
Right.
It was a great experience, and I just remember, especially Michael. Michael was producer on that,
Right.
and he's a great human being. And he's a good friend now, and he's just a great human being. And interestingly enough, during that time, it was his first producing, and he, at the time of the conversation, he was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about producing. I don't know." And then jumped to, we're at this film festival together, and I go, "How's it going?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing this movie with Michael Shannon." And I'm like, "Oh, full producer now."
Right.
But it was a great experience. We were at this film festival, and it was a very, a lot of the population, it was a military in town, and we screened this film, and it was silent. And then it got a standing ovation for, 15 minutes or something. People were just clapping, and they had tears in their eyes. And the host was actually, he served as well. And we were on stage, and he started the questions, and he stopped. He just started weeping. And he was like, "I'm sorry, it really affected me." And you see something like that, and you're like, okay, well, this is not, it's bigger than me.
Certainly.
It's about this experience, and people were just thanking us about the authenticity of, even my character's a little bit raunchy, but a lot of the Marines are like, "That's how we talked."
No, yeah,
that's how it was.
That's true. And having seen the film, it's and being in the Marine Corps infantry myself, you did hit the mark. So that makes me wonder, what kind of preparation did you go through to get ready to play a Marine?
So Joshua DeFore was great. He gave me a lot of this information about the terminology used, because as an actor, I'm circling things, and I'm like, what are you talking about when you're saying these things? And then we had some training, and he said, my character doesn't hold any kind of firearms. I think I have one at the end or something, and I get blown up. But he's like, "I just want you to know how to do it, because you serving too, you can tell." When they're not doing it right. So I went with him to Blue Ranch Studio, and we worked on it. And he's like, "You're going to be running with this, but I need to show you how to do it." So, we had a lot of these training sessions where I did it, and I was this ridiculous, kind of looks like it was 15 feet. So yeah, to get into it and the terminologies, and I said, "Well, what's your day-to-day like?" And he just walked me through, because in the movie, I think we're supposed to be stationed in Afghanistan.
Right.
So, it was great because he was directing that film, and he was a direct source. So he could go through everything, and that's great. He lived through it. So anything on the set day to day, I can say, "Hey, when you're eating and, maybe XYZ, how are you feeling about it?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I had that day happen." And so it was great. So the preparation was me and him having these conversations, finally meeting, and then doing the physical, the actual training. And he was great about it. He'd show me, and there's videos of me like, it's like, run into this place. And,
Right.
so it was good physical, and I always love that kind of preparation.
No, I like it because I mean because you even capture those little nuances, and that's like
Oh, well, thank you.
so you gotta because there are some military films that
Yeah.
not so much. It's like your head's about to explode when you watch these kind of things. That's beautiful though.
Yeah, and that was his, because he served as well.
Right.
That was his stance too. Same thing. He's like, I'm watching these movies, and you can just tell that, oh, that's an actor, or that's not real. So it was important that he got it right.
And so in that film, you saved the lives of your unit. But tell me about how theater and acting actually saved your life.
My mom, again, championing my mom, Yvette Hornsby Minor, and my stepfather, they put me in this program, the Coronado School of the Arts. So this is interesting because I didn't know this until about maybe 3 months ago. But I had just gotten into this program, Coronado School of the Arts, and I lived in La Mesa, so I didn't go to the current school anymore, but I still had friends that were going to this program, and they didn't see me because, I'd get out of school at like 7 p.m., and then I'd come home and I'd be tired. So my friend one day who was just really, really hounding me and saying, listen, you've changed, you think you're this fancy pants, just hang out with us once. And I said, okay. So we went down to the corner in La Mesa, and meanwhile, I'm new in this program, only person of color really, and I just got into this play called The Good Doctor, and I was trying to tell him like, I've got so many lines, and I need to be off book by tomorrow, and blah blah blah. So he said he didn't care. So we're waiting, and he said our other friend's going to join us. So I'm on the corner of La Mesa, and for whatever reason, I said, you know what, I have to go. And I left. And the next day I showed up and I was off book. Now, me and that friend, we fell out for years. After that day, I didn't talk to him. We reconnected maybe about a year ago. 3 months ago, he said, Philip, I never told you this, but when you got in that program, we could all see a change. You just got focused. But do you remember that day I asked you to hang out on the corner? And I said, yeah. And he said, 10 minutes after you left, our other friend came. I got in a car with that guy. They went like 2 blocks, got stopped by the police, and it turns out that car was stolen.
Wow.
And not only was it stolen, there was like stuff in the trunk.
Wow.
My friend didn't know, but he said that's the first night he went to juvenile hall.
Wow.
And he said if you would have been there with us, that would have been your first night in juvenile hall. So when I'm saying that theater saved my life and it kept me out of trouble, it literally did. And I just learned this information 3 months ago.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We're good. You're here.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. It's all because of this play, The Good Doctor, that I was in, that I needed to have my lines down. Yeah.
Incredible. And so what do you have coming up in terms of what you're working on, other than going back to Chicago for All Jacked Up? Are there any other film projects that you...
I just finished a film called Want and Want. That's what I just finished. Oh man, it's all jumbled. But yeah, finished, gonna finish Jacked Up in Chicago, then coming back to LA to shoot the 3 acts of Norman Leonard. And then the movie's coming out where everyone can, see most of my work, and what I usually get known for is The Art of Self-Defense, which is streaming everywhere pretty much, and Pledge, which is on Hulu. The Sunset of the River Styx will be out on a streaming platform, I think, in the next month, and then The Dinner Parting will be out after that.
So with all the experience under your belt, I'd really like to hear what kind of advice that you would offer, an up-and-coming actor just kind of getting started, or heck, why don't you even try the present self if you were going to give advice to your fledgling acting self?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I'll do 2. Those are really good questions. So for the young actor, I would say a couple things. I'd say this 2 things piece of advice that I great. If you want to succeed, whatever you want to do, if you're smart, you'll have a backup plan. And if you want to succeed at it, you won't.
Right.
Someone told me that. And then what I would say to my younger self, that's so good. I would say this. I'd say stay in your own lane. Don't compare yourself or your journey with other people, even your peers. Your path's different than their path. Keep your head down and just keep working. Don't have stars in your eyes. and everything has to be worked for. Nothing is offered or given without work. Entitlement doesn't really work in this career, especially if you're not connected to anyone famous, or your last name is not a famous, so just have to work for everything. I think I don't know how many years ago, but there's an actor who won an Oscar, William Holden. For the movie is escaping me, but he was a famous actor, and his motto was this, which is I adopted. He said, you do like 1 to 5 movies, and you start getting good, and people start hiring you. You do 10 to 20 movies, and people want to work with you really bad. You do 30 to 40, and they start giving you awards. So just be in front of the camera. If that's what you want to do, whatever it is, your craft, just really focus on it, and not just train, but do it.
Right.
If you want to be a film actor, be in front of that camera. If you want to be a theater actor or both, be on the stage. It's important to just do it. And I know that's the only thing that's kept me working and going is, being in front of the camera, exercising those muscles as much as possible. So
Solid advice. Note to self, stay in your lane, Michael. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming to Theater Corner and sharing yourself with our viewers, brother.
thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure. Such great questions. You're amazing, man. This is great.
Even better answers.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. And thank you, viewers, for tuning into another episode of Theater Corner, and we'll see you next time.